60s.
He's drummed for Carrie Underwood, John Legend, Demi Lovato, Mick Jagger, and even Beyonce. For the past 2 years, he's been the drummer for Joe Bonamassa. Lemar Carter talks about that and more in this latest episode of Drumheads and Tales. Welcome, Lemar Carter, to Drumheads and Tales.
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
So you grew up in a musical family in Lansing, Michigan. Tell me about how you started playing drums.
Well, kind of funny how this happened. My grandmother had a singing group along with my grandfather, and my mom and my uncle played in a band. So they would kind of interchange between instruments, and those instruments was bass and drums. And when my mom was pregnant with me, she played drums. So for whatever reason, I just kind of gravitated towards the drums. And my uncle was there to kind of guide me along the way to make sure I knew how to play with a band and, and how to play drum parts and, all these different things to be prepared for like a career in music.
So did you go through the school program?
I did in like middle school and high school, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah. You also attribute some of your earliest work playing with the gospel church.
Mm-hmm.
Did that help?
It helped because in church, there's a lot of things that happen that's unexpected, and you just have to be ready for it.
Flying by the seat of your pants.
Pretty much, so you can rehearse a song one way, and once the spirit moves at church, it can go in a completely different direction, and you have to be ready for that.
Who are some of your early drummer influences?
Early influences definitely was my uncle. He was my biggest influence at the time, my Uncle Dan. And from there was Ed Green, because he used to play all these Barry White records, and he was like, man, you need to check this guy's pocket out. So Ed Green, Dennis Chambers, obviously, and Ricky Lawson, Clyde Stubblefield. Once I went down this James Brown rabbit hole, and
did you?
Yeah, and literally I was like, if I can learn how to play these grooves, I can play anywhere.
Those were tight grooves.
Really tight grooves, yeah.
So then you felt like you needed to or wanted to move to Nashville. What was your thinking behind that?
Well, basically I got offered a job from a church to come to Nashville. And Nashville was not on the radar. I was actually going to move to either Detroit because it was close to Lansing, or I was going to move out to LA because my uncle lived in LA. And I figured, why not go to LA? I have family there, and it won't be as hard trying to figure things out. I won't have to find a place to live. I can stay there. And my best friend had moved to Nashville at the time and met a guy that was the minister of music at a church and told him about me. And they kept trying to get me to come down there, and I was like, man, there's no way I'm moving to Nashville, Tennessee. So I ended up going to Nashville, checking it out, and they said, well, look, we'll get you an apartment, we'll set you up, make sure your transition from Lansing, Michigan to Nashville, Tennessee is smooth, and that was the way it all came about.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So you're credited for either playing live or recording with Joe, obviously, Trombone Shorty, Babyface, Nick Jonas, Josh Stone, Demi Lovato, John Legend, Mick Jagger, and Beyonce. What did you do with her?
I played 3 songs on the Cowboy Carter album.
Nice.
Yeah, so it came about this guy that I've worked with named Raphael Sadiq. He produced some songs on that album, so he called me to come in and play drums, and next thing you know, these songs are on the record. So it was a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Did not expect to be on a Beyonce album.
Tell me about your first big break.
My first big break came with Carrie Underwood. So I had just finished playing a gig in Franklin, Tennessee. And it was a fundraiser for victims of Hurricane Katrina. And so played that gig, and I'm driving home, and all of a sudden I get a call from this guy named Mark. Oakley. And so he's like, hey man, I got your number from Tim Akers. Rest in peace, he died a few years ago. He's like, I got your number from Tim Akers. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And he said, so I wanted to call you about playing on some shows. And I said, okay. I was like, sounds good. I said, how early would I need to start? He was like, I'm thinking we'll rehearse in November, then you start in December. And I said, okay, cool. I said, well, if you don't mind me asking, are we just doing like some public access shows or whatever? Like what are we doing exactly? And he was like, oh, no, we're going to play like Jay Leno, David Letterman. And I said, oh, really? I was like, well, those are cool. And I was like, are you the artist or who is it? He was like, the artist is Carrie Underwood. And I said, oh, okay. All right. Well, sign me up. I'll be there.
Had she just won American Idol?
She had just won American Idol. Yeah, so that was the end of 2005.
Very cool. So how did you get the gig with Joe?
So I had met Joe a few years ago. I played on the Blues Cruise with a buddy of mine, Josh Smith, and Joe had heard me play, and he really liked the way I played. And so at the time, Anton was playing drums, and Anton had an injury, and they asked me could I sub for him for the Australian run. So I ended up subbing for the Australian run, and things went really, really good, and I ended up doing the fall tour, and then Anton came back, and this other guy, Greg Morrow, started playing, and then after that I got a call probably about a year later to come out and tour with Joe.
They like what you did.
Yeah, I think so.
That's cool. I like what you do.
Well, thank you.
Great player.
Thank you.
So Joe's song, I Want to Shout About It. It's a tremendous shuffle song. You have to be a great shuffle player to play the blues, and you are. What do you think helped you becoming a good shuffle player?
I would have to say, so this is about to go in an interesting direction, but I'd never forget, I went to the drum store in my hometown, and I bought a pair of Buddy Rich drumsticks. And a cassette came with those drumsticks. And so one side of that cassette tape was him playing a drum solo. The other side was him doing an interview. And one of the things that he said was, in order for you to be a good drummer, you have to be able to play all styles of music. And out of that whole interview, that was the one thing I took away from it. He said a lot of great things, but that was the one thing that I took away from it. And so immediately I just started, listening to like blues and rock and country and jazz and gospel and R&B and all these different styles of music, and really tried to get good enough at playing those styles of music that if I ever got a call to play those styles of music, no one would look at me and say, what is this guy doing up there? He's not the right call for this. And so I worked really hard at that. And so then, I started playing in Raphael's band, and then I met Josh. And Josh Smith, the guitar player. He's a really big blues historian. So he's like, man, check this record out, check that record out, check this out. And I just felt like I just kept getting more and more comfortable with blues, which led to that groove on Joe's album on Shout About It. Yeah.
Very cool. And you were telling me before that there's different ways to play a shuffle too. It's not just the
No, there's a lot of ways. I mean,
you play your kick drum differently.
You can play the kick drum different. You could do quarter notes on the ride. You could do a swing pattern on the ride. I mean, there's just a lot of different things that you can do with the shuffle. And I think a lot of people miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you play with a click?
There's a click to start the song off, and then we turn it off.
Just to set the tempo.
Just to set the tempo, that's it. Then after that, all the rails come off.
So you've been with, as we were talking about, Sonor for quite a few years now.
Yeah, I've been there since 2018, playing the SQ2 drums, which sounds incredible. I love these drums.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want me to go through the sizes.
Sure.
Okay, so here is a 13 by 9. It's the vintage maple shells.
Yeah.
So they're like the thin Ludwig shells from the 60s.
Yeah.
And then this is a 14 by 12 and a 16 by 14. and all the shells are the same, the vintage shells. 24 by 14 kick, and then this is a 6 by 14 bronze snare drum. This thing weighs 1,000,000 pounds.
Is it really?
Yeah, but when you hit it, it barks.
Yeah.
It barks. Yeah, it cuts through. And these are some old quick beat hats.
Yeah.
14-inch, a brilliant Sweet Crash 18, another Sweet Crash a 19, 20. I think this is a 19 A custom.
Yeah.
Ultra hammered, and then a 22 ping ride. So
That really sounded nice during sound check.
yeah, it's a nice ride.
Yeah.
Really nice ride. So I'm very happy with the setup, and obviously this right here is for the seat thumper, Porter and Davies. So yeah,
You like that?
I love it.
Yeah.
You ever checked it out?
Yeah, I did. A friend of mine has that.
Oh, okay, I was like, it's not working. I was gonna say you should check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's great.
You play a drum solo during the show.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach your solos?
It's a good question.
You let the spirit move you.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I just try to think of how can I create an arc, you know, like how can I find a way to just keep the drum solo building and building and building to that point to where to that point to where I just start hitting the cymbals as hard as I can, and the crowd goes crazy. Because that's one of the things that I've noticed. Every time I watch drum solos, whenever drummers would just start hitting the cymbals a lot, the crowd would respond to that. And so I'm like, okay, whatever I can do to just get to that last moment of like just hitting the cymbals and doing stuff, that's where I want to be with this drum solo.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if I can get to that moment the right way, where it feels like there's just a continual build, I feel good about it.
So tell me about working with Mr. Bonamassa.
Working with Mr. Bonamassa has been really, really incredible. Everything is just top notch. I mean, the guy is a living legend. I mean, you know, I'm just amazed at how much he gives every night to the crowd. I mean, literally, it's like 150%. You know, some people give 100%, but literally, he gives like 150% every single night. So it's been really, really good. And it's like some nights, once you get close to the end of a run, you're like, yeah, you know what, I can kind of take the night off. And it's like, as soon as I get on stage and I just see how much energy he's giving, I'm like, you know what, I can't take a night off. You know? I have to give 150%, you know, myself.
That is cool.
Yeah.
last question. What advice would you have for an 18-year-old kid from Michigan who really wants to be a professional drummer?
The one thing that I would have to say is always remember why you got into music. And I think if you can keep that first, which is have fun, just realize that, you're getting an opportunity to do something that a lot of people don't get a chance to do. And so no matter how difficult things are, you find out that the business side of it kind of sucks, because you just want to play music and have fun.
Yeah.
And you get kind of wrapped up in the business part, and it's easy to get jaded. But as long as you can always remember to have fun and just make, good choices, good decisions while you're out here, that would be the most important part to just having an effective career in music.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Well, Lemar, I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Take care of yourself on the road.
Will do. Pleasure.
Cheers.
Thank you, Bob.